switch to comms. Monroe, with me. James, stay.
Save the world some other time, yeah?
So I finally managed to catch up with 007 First Light, and it was great. But I actually went through a little bit of a journey with the game, so I wanted to talk about it. And I think the guys of Outside Xbox put it really well.
We've played 007 First Light. Mike, let me ask you a loaded question. Were you disappointed?
Yes and no.
Okay, explain yourself.
Well, so the reason I would say I was a bit disappointed, I think, was to do with expectations going in based on our love of Hitman.
Sky high expectations because we love Hitman.
Because we love Hitman so much.
Damn much.
This game is not a Hitman game with the Bond skin. I think that's the thing that's become abundantly clear, having played it.
Because I was on the same boat, and probably a lot of people, in that I was also expecting basically Hitman, but with a James Bond skin, which, to be fair to IO, they already did that with the Le Chiffre elusive target, I think it was.
Your target is the elusive shadow banker, known only as Le Chiffre, a financial mastermind with suspected ties to the criminal underworld. He has arranged a high-stake poker game at the Casino Monarchique.
But this game is not that, don't get me wrong, right? Like, there's a lot of Hitman in this game, but it's also a completely different experience. If you start this game expecting that Hitman sandboxy clockwork open level, where you are left alone to find a way to do your objective, you're not gonna find quite that. You get a little bit of that, but in general, that's not what the game is going for. The way I will describe it, it's each level is divided in a few sections, and for the most part, they all follow the same structure, and there are two main parts to that. First, you have the being a spy part. This is when the game feels more like Hitman. There's a semi-open level with different routes and ways to do your objective, and it's not as open as Hitman. It kinda reminds me to Hitman's opportunity kills, more or less. And then there's the other part, where things go south and the game becomes more straightforward third-person shooter, where you go around fighting and killing enemies. And then you might have a few other sections to the level, like driving sequences and stealth sections, where you use your gadgets to create distractions or kill enemies without being seen. That's also very Hitman-esque. But the Hitman part of the gameplay is just a small part of the whole experience. In fact, the more I played it, the more it reminded me more to a Naughty Dog games, like The Last of Us or more specifically Uncharted. But it doesn't feel like a copy. It's more like Naughty Dog games as digested by IO Interactive. And what I mean by that is the games still have the bones of Hitman inside. And that could be both good and bad, to be fair. It allowed the game to have all these options in movement and actions. But if you have played Hitman, you know that it cannot be the smoothest of experience, particularly control-wise. Like having all these inputs that change and overlap depending on where your character is can be a little bit clunky. But here is better, to be fair. But still, every now and then, you get some friction. And, you know, that can be annoying. But it's not that bad. The shooting is a good example. In Hitman, it's functional at best. But makes sense, right? Because you are either making the killing shot or something went horribly wrong and you are shooting your way out in a level. The point is that you probably are not doing a lot of it. So it's okay that it's not the greatest. Here is better, but it's still not as good as the best games. But you're going to shoot a lot, so it's good that it's better. And I think they know it, because they even give you like some kind of bullet time that you can use every now and then. So that's good. But the other side of combat, I think the game does great. Melee combat is really good. Like, there's a lot of it. You can punch, you can block, you can parry, you can grab, you can tackle and execute enemies. And then there's a bunch of contextual stuff that you can do, like throwing objects, or if you run out of bullets, you can throw your gun at them. You can slide over cover and kick them, so you disarm enemies. you have a lot of tools that create these really fun kind of John Wick combat sequences where you are just scrapping around and managing a lot of enemies at the same time. And that feels great. The melee combat in the game is really fun. I will say though, it does also create situations where you're just spamming the tackle because it's an easy disarm. So you just tackle an enemy, hit it a couple of times, and then trigger the execution animation because that makes you invulnerable. So it gives you a lot of time to create space and not get killed. But yeah, like combat in First Light is surprisingly fun. And that's the thing, like I think overall the game prioritizes spectacle. It's constantly creating sequences that feel straight out of, well, James Bond movies, right? In general, it's just a more scripted experience. And people might not like that. For example, like all the driving sequences are just a little bit more than interactive cinematics. And there's also the bosses that are not great, I will say, because it's either just a fight with an enemy with extra health, or you're just running around waiting for them to walk into a trap that you can activate, and you do that multiple times. So those can not be fun. But if you are on board with what the game has, you're gonna really enjoy it. And what the game has is just a great James Bond origin story. Like, I'm a big fan of the great era of James Bond, like a lot of people, even if I think it has a couple of not so great movies. But in general, like every version of the character, it's always Bond in the sense that he already is 007. We never had an origin story before, I think. Maybe it's just an age thing, like this is the first James Bond that looks a little bit relatively young. I think they mentioned that he's like 26 or something, but that feels fresh. And sure, he already has the typical swaggerness and cocky attitude that come with the role, but you can see the journey that he has. I will say, like, the writing, it's nothing mind-blowing. The story hits every beat that is expected of a spy thriller. It does it in the right way, I will say. And more importantly, despite having quite a few time skips, the story takes its time. Like, it breathes and establishes every character and their relationship within each other. So when the stakes get higher, you actually care about them. And it was great to see Bond grew into being the 007 agent. So when at the end, like, you get this sequence.
Perhaps you'd be so kind as to do some digging. 007.
Well, thought you'd never ask.
It actually feels earned, but something that also surprised me about the end was seeing this. Not because I don't want a sequel, but because while I was playing it, something that I noticed was that the story just kept going, not in a bad way. Like, the game didn't overstate its welcome, but a few times, narratively, the story felt like it was ending, and then something happened and it kept rolling. And it gave me the sensation that I wasn't sure that if they will have the chance to do it again. So they were throwing everything at this one chance that they had. And to be fair, considering that Amazon Studios is behind it, nothing is off the table. But kinda surprised me that they were counting on doing more. And if I'm honest, I really hope that they get the chance to do more, because they really did a great job with First Light, and I would like to see more.